we're going to begin by first hearing from Emryn.
Hello, old and new friends of Ashtar Theater and Palestine. I would like to thank you all for being with us on this call. I am Emryn, co-founder of Ashtar Theater, creator of the Gaza Monologues. When we did the Gaza Monologues back in 2010, we thought that that would be the first and last war on our people in Gaza. But alas, it did not work out. Therefore, there was another war, and another, and another, and it continued on and on and on for the last 17 years. At the moment, with all that you have seen in the media and all that you have done in your countries, in your cities, still nothing on the ground is being changed. We, as a small company in Palestine, we're trying to keep the voice of the people of Palestine and of the people of Gaza heard. And therefore, we are calling upon you that these monologues, they do not only go into your hearts and minds, but that these monologues will become a paveway for a real change, a real pressure on your governments to take action that will bring justice and long-lasting solution for a sovereign state for Palestine, that the world will all agree to have and will all recognize the state of Palestine. Because through peace and with peace, we can all live as regular people. Thank you. Thank you for being with us on this call. And we are all together to save our humanity.
Calling Up Justice is producing the Gaza Monologues in the spirit of cross-movement solidarity, ensemble, and abolition. Through cross-movement solidarity, we create a united front. And this isn't just about cross-movement solidarity, because disabled artists and organizers understand that we share the struggles of the Palestinian people. In Gaza, the Israeli bombardment and blockades are creating a mass disabling event, whether it be by forced displacement, surviving continuous air raids, having loved ones and entire families murdered and missing, and so much more. The colossal rates of individual and collective trauma create all types of disabilities, ranging from mobility, psychiatric, sensory, chronic illness, and so much more. Due to the Israeli government's destruction of Gaza, including constant attacks to critical hospitals and medical centers, all disabled people, including those newly disabled who survive, have limited to no access to needed life-saving and life-sustaining care. This is a direct quote from the CRIP call to action. That language I just said to you was written by a disabled Jewish person who is here for the cause. This is only possible because of all of us coming together. Emryn collaborated with Calling Up Justice. Emryn is the executive director of Ashtar Theater in Palestine, Ramallah, Palestine. And they collaborated with us in 2021 for our Black Lives Matter Every 28 Hours Plays project, where we were reflecting on a play that was about Palestinian activists coming to Ferguson to help us fight racial injustice where we are. The Gaza Monologues, they were written by Ashtar youth in 2010. After the first war in the Gaza Strip. Since October 2010, more than 2,000 youth from around the globe in more than 80 cities in 40 countries have presented the monologues that are translated and presented into 18 languages. And we are among many different productions producing this reading on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. This is a collaborative performance that is embracing the idea of diversity and ensemble by having multiple people embrace and embody one person. So this is collaborative, and this was also rapid response. This process was about immediate encounter and working within the constraints of capitalism and crip time. So our colleagues had an hour, and they were given the monologues. They were given the monologues in the last hour, and they staged them in real time. We do this in the spirit of abolition. And I'm quoting from Cripping Abolition right now, the Cripping Abolition website. Abolition is not limited to ending spaces and practices of incarceration and policing. Fundamentally, abolition is about reimagining new ways of life, such that a world in which prisons, policing, and other carceral systems as solutions to social problems become unthinkable. Abolition is not just about creating new responses to crises, but creating a new world in which we thrive, such that less crises happen in the first place. What we are doing right now is an exercise in radical empathy, and is an exercise in abolition.
Amjad Abu Yassin, born 1993, Ashtar camp. A day before the war, Gaza for me was joy and happiness. Trips and going to the sea, life seemed to be happy, and I wasn't thinking about anything. I had one dream, that Gaza would develop in art and sports. I felt that everything was fine except these two things, but it turned out nothing was fine. No art, sports, health, or safety. It's all the same. Gaza stopped being the city of my dreams because my dream is to be an actor. Am I going to be an actor for 20 people in Gaza and wait till the border opens? If it was in my hands, I would try as much as possible to reduce wars, death, and violence. It's a shame for every drop of blood that falls on the ground. I hate the silence and the abnormal tolerance that people have. I wish all Gaza would wake up tomorrow and walk the streets loudly shouting, "Enough!" When the war started, we were playing football, and the atmosphere was strange. The sky was red. Suddenly, we heard the sound of a plane. I never heard a sound like that. We were all scared and lay on the ground waiting for death. After that, we heard the sound of a loud explosion meters away from us. We started looking in each other's faces and silently saying goodbye. Turned out the bombing wasn't meant for us. It was targeting a car of wanted men on the road above, but we kept lying down, waiting for the second rocket. And all I could think of was my two older brothers who were with me. I was more afraid for them than for myself, and I think they also felt the same way. I carried my sports shorts and ran away from the field. As I ran, I stepped on a piece of shrapnel. I took it out of my leg and went out into the street and saw them. They were 3 martyrs, and you couldn't make out their features. The first one's legs were on fire. He was looking at me and I at him. And among everyone there, he was warning me about something I didn't understand. It was then I knew he was warning me about a car coming fast towards us. Then I knew the real meaning of death. And instead of being 3 martyrs, there could have been 4. I was shocked at the scene. I stood there watching. And when I woke up after passing out, I ran home. The war came and went, and we're still living it. The victims are always the poor people who have nothing to do with anything. Even when there's an earthquake or a flood in any country, the victims are the poor people, as though there's a universal conspiracy against them. After the war, everyone started lying to everyone else. Lies, cheating, dishonesty, deceitfulness. For positions and interests, the leaders and powerful people commit slaughters and crimes without batting an eyelid or feeling any guilt. Poor people get poorer, and the sick ones get sicker. I've lost trust in all mottos. The biggest speech from the biggest leader is bullshit. All speeches in the world don't warm up a cold person or someone sleeping in a tent after the war. The crisis is that the whole world is watching us as though there's nothing going on, and they're still making speeches.
Anis Abuita, born 1995, Ash Sheikh Radwan. Since I was a small kid, I've dreamt of being a famous football player. I believed I would fulfill my dreams. But today, there are a million obstacles in my path. Before, there was no playing fields for adults or even kids. Then the siege came and made everything worse. If I was the prime minister, I'd pay most attention to the Ministry of Youth and Sports. I would build playing fields everywhere, especially in schools, and I'd let the students play freely, not be kicked out by the school guard. I'd abolish all club fees and preserve all parks. But dreams, security, hope, and the future are all words that lose their meaning in a city that kills the smallest dream possible. I was a goalkeeper, but my friends Mohammed kept telling me, I'm going to get a goal, but I always stopped his goals.
On the 7th of January, 2009, a day in the war, I was sitting at the door of our house and it was foggy. And someone came to tell me, your friend Mohammed was martyred. Of course, I didn't believe it. I went looking for my friend and I was really scared of the idea of death. I go to the mosque and I saw the closest friend in my life, Mohammed, wrapped in the flag of Palestine and torn into pieces. I cried a lot. And I was sad because I couldn't hug or kiss him, and I started holding him. We took him to the cemetery and buried him. And I kept sitting there telling him I loved him. And I was really upset because he left me alone in this world. As I was leaving the cemetery, there was heavy bombing. I felt that the angel of death was following me and not leaving me alone. But thank God I'm still alive. Ihab Alayan, born 1994, Al-Saftah Street. From when I first became aware of the world, I've had limited thinking. Life for me was to be born, grow up, get married, have kids, work, raise them, feed them, educate them, marry them off, and then die. But after the war, I found that life was much harder than that. It turned out that every small step we take has a million knots behind it. I'm scared of not finding work when I grow up because wherever I go, I see men sitting in front of their houses with nothing to do. It's what scares and saddens me the most. That's why kids in Gaza took responsibility and were denied their childhood since birth. My mother always used to say, Ihab is one of my best kids because I was always at home, never had any problems. When the war started, my father locked us up at home because of how scared he was for us. And 2 hours later, I was bored. I went out to walk around our house. But this time the walk was different. I was afraid to walk near the cars in case they were bombed. And all the time I kept looking up at the sky in case a plane would come and bomb me without me knowing it. I was terrified, even though the Safawi district doesn't see a lot of activity. I went back home running as though from something terrifying and stayed at home till the war was over. And after the war, my life changed a lot. My relationship with people and the neighbors improved. I became known to the men of the neighborhood, and I started playing checkers with the old people. I started spending all my time outside the house. I can't stay inside for a minute. And my mother stopped saying Ehab is one of the best of my kids. I discovered that I didn't exist before the war, but after the war, here I am, God protect me. In the city, breathing its air, I'm singing and dancing and crying with it. And life is rolling onwards.
Tamir Najem, born 1993, Ashashiki Radwan. Gaza is a matchbox, and we are the matches inside it. When the war started on Gaza, all the media focused on us. Al Jazeera, Al Abraya, and all the satellite channels were focused on Gaza and the occupation, wouldn't leave us alone. The whole world became busy with Gaza and what's happening in it. Suddenly, Al Jazeera wrote, "Breaking news, death of Mohammed al-Hindi." And it wasn't normal because that Mohammed, he's my uncle, my mother's brother. It was the first time I see the screaming move from the live broadcast onto the house TV. Screaming and yelling and tears, all of it mixed up together, and it moved from our house onto the street. And my mom fainted. A while later, the phone rang. It was my second uncle, calling to tell us that Muhammad was martyred. He didn't know that the whole world knew the news. The television is awful. Before a person is shot as the bullet is on his way to its chest, the television has already broadcasted the news. But these days, all the channels are sitting idle, praying to God, send another war on Gaza, so they have work. Anyway, we all started crying bitterly for my uncle and remembering him and talking about him. We kept talking about him for a long time. Then it started getting less because death became normal in Gaza. After the war, I stopped caring whether I live or die. After what we saw in the war, I don't care about anything because I think each day I live is the biggest bonus. And all the life I live after the war is extra because I could have died at any second. You know, I am sick of the city, even though I love it. And I am sick of the people too. Sometimes I feel that I know the 1.5 million who are in Gaza. There's nothing new. The same day is repeated every day. I feel like traveling, like changing scene and faces. As soon as I wake up every morning, I see the electricity pole in my face. I wish I'd wake up one day and not find it there. Each day, Abu Ibrahim stands at the door of the supermarket, and I bet the bean seller is selling his beans, and Abu El Abid is sitting at the door of his house, afraid that his house will run away. Ibrahim is standing with Hassan, and I know the taxi drivers one by one. I know who takes you to the city and who goes to the beach. It's soul draining. The only hour that it's different in my life is the one when I come to the theater practice. It became my work, my mission. I wait for it impatiently. Without the theater, I would have gone crazy. When I grew up, I want to be an actor. I've loved acting since I was a kid. But any institution that I used to go to when I was a kid threw me out a few days later. But this time it's different.
Haima Okasha, born 1997, Atufa. Macaroni, mujadara, noodles and cans of all shapes and colors, made in Morocco, China, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Somalia, and the date of expiry doesn't matter. In the war, all the streets were filled with empty cans. A lot of kids wounded their legs on the empty cans. The occupation was leading a war on us in the earth and sky, and we had declared a vicious war on food. We used to eat 100 times a day. Whenever we opened our eyes from 6 in the morning till the next day, 6 in the morning, we'd be eating. I thought only our house was like that, but when I asked, they told me all of Gaza went crazy for food. I thought the state of war and the scenes of martyrs and destruction would affect people's appetite for food. But it seems that the state of fear, horror, and worry makes people more hungry and they eat more. It could also be that the whole family was at our place, especially the girls. They competed on who could make tastier food. And my poor father couldn't keep up, carrying bags of food of all shapes and colors. The food we ate in 20 days of war wasn't enough for a year. And the problem was, every time I said, I don't want to eat, I ate more. When I grow up, I want to be a journalist or a lawyer or a prime minister, a journalist so I could photograph the beauty and simplicity in Gaza because I love it. I love its salt, sand, and air, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. A lawyer so I could defend all the deprived and mistreated people in this city because I don't like seeing anyone suffer in it. And I wish I could be the prime minister so I could force law and order on the city. That's where the solution begins.
We were only able to pull this off in a very quick turnaround, rapid response because our disability theater community said yes right away. Our theater community said yes right away. HowlRound offered support immediately. The Curiosity Paradox signed up immediately. So just thank you. Thank you to Kiana. Thank you to Jacinia. Thank you to One Free Community. Thank you for your work. And thank you so much to Ghostlight Interpreting for offering ASL support. The choices that you just witnessed, those were the choices of the brilliant human beings who volunteered to join us on a moment's notice to stand up for Palestinian lives. Inside the chat on HowlRound are listed all of the other productions that are taking place across the world. So just know that you are aligned and in collaboration with so many people speaking these truths today. I was so incredibly moved by the creative choices that y'all made. And I really feel like this production embodies the elements of disability justice and the idea that we are all one. We're going to be dropping some next steps, action steps into the chat, and we are wishing you the best. Please keep working for justice. Thank you so much for joining us. This will be a recording on HowlRound, so you can share this recording. You can do watch parties in the future. But thank you for joining us on Wednesday, November 29th, 2023. For International Solidarity with Palestinians. I'm going to invite everybody to turn on their cameras for our final moment as we say goodbye to everyone. So if you want to turn on your cameras, go right ahead. I'm so moved. I did not have a chance to drop all of the links of these amazing human beings. Like, you don't even know how amazing these human beings are. You were all so good. And you all didn't see the chat. The chat here where we were just enthusing to each other. So many wows. That's beautiful. That's so moving. I was sitting here, y'all, so much tissues. So many tissues. Goodbye. So everybody away.